Aistė S. Yes, the director and writer of Mažoji. This is a story told through the perspective of a toddler. This is a story of a family's first encounter with schizophrenia. Is it the boy has schizophrenia?
So I wanted to kind of keep it open. The question would be, does he not? And for me, the story was very much about not him or schizophrenia itself, because I think there's so many beautiful stories told about the schizophrenia. I wanted to have a look at the family who's going through this big word. And I think my idea was, it doesn't even matter if he has it or not, it's how the family deal with the fact that it might happen. You know, so you have a mother who is, you know, she's sort of pretending nothing is happening and, you know, it's all sort of denial. Then you have a grandmother who goes away and gets encyclopedias and, you know, goes really strong and...
They do that.
You know, well, they do, but, you know, and just making sure that, you know, like, we need to save, we need to do something. And then you also have this uncle who is basically... you know, the type of the person who sort of jokes a lot and pretends that nothing is really real, but then also the person who says the truth as well. So like your Shakespeare in full. So I wanted to have a look at all those three different characters and how they would deal with the possibility of mental health. Especially like in the community where I come from, so post-USSR, you know, I was born, it was still USSR. And I feel like there's so much learning still for us to have a look at how we deal with things like schizophrenia. And having shown this film and opened up and with the conversation in Lithuania about the mental health, I realized there's so much work to be done. But it's very much about the taboo. You know, people not reaching out, like you know, being a mom who has a son or a daughter who has this, and then not being able to actually go and get some help because they're afraid of it. Everybody seems to be afraid of it because there's not enough information.
Where is the father in this story?
I chose the father to be absent. You know,
there is a father.
There is a father. So the father is mentioned in a way that the uncle is sort of pushing, saying, "Where is the Valentas, you know, Valentinas?" And she's like, "Well, he's working." So I chose to have the father absent because I felt like this woman, this mother of this potentially schizophrenic teenager, sort of has to deal with it by herself. You know, so it was a choice of like a tool for the character.
Yeah, how did you get into filmmaking? Because this is. It's interesting to say that this is your first film, I guess?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Well, I graduated as an actress in the UK, but I did an MA in acting. My BA is in journalism, film and media, but that was more theoretical. And I realized that I didn't want to be a journalist, but I really loved the cinema sort of stuff. And then through my acting, I was always I wasn't a traditional actor. I was going to film festivals and I was hanging out with people who are filmmakers, not actors. And I was going to Q&As and I was learning a lot. And people told me, like, you're not really an actor. There's something else about you. And I was like, no, I'm an actress. But then eventually I knew that I was going to be, at some point I will be writing. And I thought it's going to be books. But then through what my life took me on this journey, I realized I was going to be writing scripts. I just didn't really realize I'm going to be directing. And partly that was mostly fear because I thought the directors are geniuses and, you know, who am I? I'm an actor. I don't know anything about it. And then doing this film, I wrote it. I was part of the scheme of, I was teamed up with the producer. I was encouraged to direct because my question was like, well, I don't know if I can direct. And he was like, well, try and you'll see. And then we ended up getting funding. And then all of a sudden I had my team with me. I had my cinematographers. I had like the full team. And here I had to direct it, you know, and I was like so many people were depending on me, and I was like, I had to, and the story as well was important.
Why did you choose to tell this story through the perspective of a toddler? It was also a convenient solution to the cinematography.
It was a crazy, on all levels, it was a crazy choice, right? But the story came to me through that perspective. I think it goes deeper psychologically why I told it. It's probably some sort of channeling of myself. But also what it was, for me, was always a story not about schizophrenia, not about family, but about the relationship between the sister and the brother as well. And at that point, I was looking for my relationship with my brother. So that was kind of personal. But as a tool, I realized that babies have no understanding on everything, you know. So baby has this sort of, there's no knowledge, there is no judgment, there is nothing. So the baby in the film then becomes the only character that goes back to the brother and sort of interacts with him, because everybody else is afraid of schizophrenia or what it might not be. And it's only because the baby is a pure sort of love, unconditional love. That's why. And also, I think
it was a very clever angle. Actually, I don't know why they told you that it was a crazy idea.
Well, crazy
the
for me is
amazing.
Crazy to do it, creative, you know, to film it, and yeah, we did.
It gives you a lot of. It's if I can use the term, we should use this term. It's a cinematographic approach. This is how we should tell the stories.
I wanted also the story to. The cinema I love is cinema that has color in it. So when there's drama, I don't like drama. You know, like I like intense stuff, but I like it when there's a bit of like. I don't know, one of my favorite films is La Vita è Bella, that tells a story that it's a very powerful story, but it's sort of told through this, you know, different character, like a bit of jokes and stuff. And I feel like in life, it's never really black and white. There's lots of color. And I think having, again, baby as a lead character, I was also then allowed to have this a bit of imagination and a color and something else happening, not just the actual thing.
We have a happy end, almost.
Yeah. Yeah, well, actually, that shot that you see at the end of the movie is the only shot I had to use. It was a magic shot. But,
how come? What happened?
But it was the planned story. So the planned story was that, you know, she comes back and they interact. But I had planned this beautifully lit, and we tested it. Beautifully lit, 2 shots of them looking at each other, starting to play. But the last day of shoot, we took such a long time to lit the room. And then I had twins while I was filming this. Not me, my actors. But the last day was just very difficult. They just didn't want to stay in that room. So we could do nothing to make it work. They were just crying and not doing anything. And usually we would swap the babies, you know, if like one of them starts crying, we would swap the babies. You know, our sound design, we had to create everything from scratch because obviously everybody was around trying to like, come on, you know, all that kind of stuff.
How long did you wait for the baby to lift it's a baby girl, yes?
Yeah.
Her hands up.
Well, they were great. Sometimes, so I didn't end up using that, but we had shots of like 3-4 people in the room, in the kitchen, from the angles that everybody was there. They didn't look at the camera once. They were literally, what they were supposed to be doing, they were continuing and watching people, and they never did anything. So that's just the last day, because the first 2 days of filming, they did something that I could not even imagine writing it, you know, like, she had to leave. The expectation was leave the room. She picks up the lemon and just leaves with it, you know, like things like that, and like pointing at the brother. But the last day was just, yeah. So basically, then because the film obviously starts with a brother and a sister and ends with a brother and a sister, then I had like so very little material of actually making it work at the end.
The lighting is amazing. In other aspects, of course. What are you working now? On what are you working now?
Well, I got the bug, so I'm going to be directing hopefully another film.
Short film?
Short film, yeah. I don't think I have the craziness because I feel like it was such a difficult journey for me to make this one, and mostly because it was more for me to come to terms of like being able to actually do this. I need to make another one because I discovered some of the stuff I was actually really natural at because I was on set so many times. But when it came to post-production, I was like, really? So I feel like I do have some skills in this, and I want to do more and then learn and grow as a filmmaker. but I also feel like I have a few more stories to tell, mostly about mental health at the moment. So I wrote a second film, and we're trying to get the funding from the Lithuanian Film Fund. I have a different producer now. We have a 14.
Do you have a budget on your mind?
Well, it's a crazy budget for somebody who's a newbie. It's for us to use the Lithuanian tax incentive, we need to have minimum budget of 43,000 euros. So that's sort of what we're trying to do, about 45k. Hopefully that will happen. And then while I'm waiting for that to happen, because that script is ready already, and planned, and we have location scouts and everything, it's just now the money.
It's always the money.
It's all the money. Or the time, as we already mentioned, right? It's never enough time or money. But like, you know, as working in this thing, I was always like laughing at the filmmakers, going like, oh, you know, when you do something like it's always something goes wrong, you know. But when you actually are a filmmaker and something goes wrong, and I'm like, how do you guys do that? Like, you know, and I think part of a journey is, right, just the coping and having those magic moments when something goes wrong on the set. And so that last shot for me was just like, okay, please just pick her up, just see if something happens. And this beautiful shot just happened. And obviously it was very on the lines of what I was writing anyway, but I didn't imagine it in that way. And when my editor saw it, she was like, well, that's your ending. And I was like, yeah. You know, and I feel like you say it's you know, going back to if it's a happy ending, I feel, again, I wanted to leave it quite open because
it's an ambiguous about
it's, you know, schizophrenia. Like if you go back to that, like it doesn't really go away, right? It doesn't have a happy ending, but it's about connection with people. It's about talking about it. It's about interacting about it. You know, it's about not being afraid to having a look at it. You know, and that sometimes that's actually enough. You know, you don't need to save anyone.
Okay, I think that wraps it up. Thank you for this interesting conversation. Thank you for being here at the festival. Some of you watched Aistė S film last night. If you would like to ask a question, feel free. If you don't want to do that, we are going to end it right now. No? Ah, okay.
That's very beautiful. Thank you. It's very actually interesting what people see. It's very beautiful. I did sort of look at it as a cycle, but yeah, thank you. I mean, that was just casting. So I had the adults already knew who I was filming, but the kids or the teenager as well, there was casting, and I did have 3 completely different choices. And it was my casting director. She was like, okay, if you go with this, he's cinematically something already, you know, and I did. And I know it was a very hard choice, but she is one of my inspirations, you know, obviously, you know, she creates such a strong, powerful story. So yeah, absolutely. I was always saying, like, you know, the intensity of her work, and then to take something like, you know, again, La Vita Bella, or like, you know, anything sort of Pan's Labyrinth, you know, for me, it's a mixture somewhere. And I think that's what I'm discovering in myself as a filmmaker. It's like the imagination and the intensity of the worlds, you know. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, that's it then.